Last year, I had the privilege of being the invited guest of the TEDx organization and to sit in this very audience. It was a wonderful day, and everyone was warm and welcoming. But as much as I knew I appeared to fit in, I felt very different. I had a secret. It was a secret about my life. It was a secret that I thought others would find repugnant and unforgivable. A year ago, I was a parolee of the state of Michigan. I had spent 7 years in prison for a drinking and driving accident in which a man was killed and his wife severely injured. You see, I am an alcoholic. I have the disease of alcoholism. I'm an addict. On December 12, 2007, I was driving drunk. I crossed the center line and I hit another car head on. My blood alcohol content was 0.33, which is 4 times the legal limit. I don't remember anything about the accident, but what I remember clearly is all the pain and the devastation that my alcoholism caused me, those who love me, and the community. I was raised the daughter of a successful attorney. My mother was a stay-at-home mom who raised 7 children. I was number 7. In our family, education was a priority, so we all attended private schools and we were expected to go to college. I thought my family was normal in every way. But what I didn't realize at the time was the extreme role that alcohol played in our family. It was powerful and it was cunning. Every holiday, every birthday, every celebration, every commiseration included alcohol for the adults. I grew up thinking that alcohol meant fun, entertainment, and a way to cope with life. I had my first drink at the age of 11. I remember sneaking into my parents' liquor cabinet and pouring a little of every open bottle into a single glass, which I covered with saran wrap. My plan was to drink it on the weekend. You see, I was a normal child. I was curious. I just wanted to know the magic in those bottles. So when the weekend came, I retrieved my glass from its hiding place, and I uncovered it. The smell was strong, and it was terribly revolting. So I plugged my nose, and I gulped it down. At first, I wanted to vomit, but that sensation was soon replaced with another. It was a feeling of warmth and a calmness that I had never experienced before, and I liked it. Luckily, I didn't drink much during my teenage years, but I do recall looking forward to joining the ranks of adulthood and drinking openly with my parents and older siblings. When I was 18 and I had graduated from high school, I moved from the Detroit area up here to Traverse City to go to school right here at NMC. My college years were spent studying, working, and binge drinking on the weekends. By the age of 21, I was married to an alcoholic. He was a good man, but an alcoholic. My 20s and 30s were spent raising my 3 children, and my only periods of abstinence were during my 3 pregnancies. I didn't see my drinking as a problem at that time, because back then I could generally choose when I was going to drink and how much I was going to drink. But what I didn't recognize was that I was setting up the same alcoholic behavior patterns in my household as I had known in my parents. In my late 30s, life began to change for me, and I became very unhappy. I started reaching more and more for the drink just to cope with the normal stresses of life. When I was 39, I divorced my husband of 19 years, and ironically, one of the reasons I divorced him was to no longer be a victim of his alcoholism. After the divorce, I quickly remarried, and again I chose a drinker, this time a social drinker. Nobody realized how much I was drinking at the time because I had begun drinking in secret. I had begun lying about my drinking. But when it became apparent that I did have a problem, my husband came to me and he asked me to slow down, to start controlling my drinking. I tried, but the more I tried, the more I finally found that I couldn't. It was about this time that I got a DUI. The DUI was terribly shameful and embarrassing, not only for me, but also for my family. All of a sudden, my secrets, our family secrets, were known by many. The DUI also introduced a new element into my life. It was the element of fear. I now knew what it was like to ride in the back seat of a police car with my hands cuffed behind my back. I knew the stench of the drunk tank, and I knew what it meant to be afraid of the judge. My family watched me struggle through the legal system, losing my license, gaining it back, being on probation, and all the while never quitting drinking. When anybody would ever ask me how I was doing, I would tell them I was fine, but nothing was fine. I finally decided that it was time to get some professional help. In the next few years, I went to 3 rehabs, I went to individual counseling, and I went to recovery meetings in the community. But as much as I wanted sobriety, and as much as I wanted to stop hurting and disappointing the people who loved me, I could never stay sober for long. It was while I was in my 3rd rehab, it was in New York, that I received divorce papers from my 2nd husband. I was instantly overwhelmed with feelings of loneliness, sadness, and the fear that I would go home and I would fail again. So when it came time to go home and I got on the plane, it was like those feelings just erupted inside of me. And without any forethought, none at all, I ordered a drink. All it took was one drink, and the obsessions and the compulsion to drink returned, along with the physical cravings. When I got home, my drinking escalated again, and this time, along with the drinking, came a lot of depression. Then, along with the depression, came suicidal thoughts, followed by suicidal actions. I tried to take my life many times. You see, I thought at the time that I had to end the cycle. I had to end the pain for me and for everyone else. I knew that if I were successful in taking my life, that I would definitely hurt the people I loved, especially my children. But I also thought that they would go on. The pain would lessen with time, and they wouldn't have the burden of me. You see, I no longer knew who I was, and I no longer was a mother my kids could depend on. As you can imagine, living with me for my children became very, very difficult. My oldest son came to me when he was 17, and he said he was moving out of our home. He was moving in with his girlfriend. I knew he had to get away from me. About a year or so later, my youngest son came to me, and he said he was moving in with another family. My heart was broken. And it wasn't long after that my daughter, she was 23 at the time, and she had moved in and out of the house a couple times, she came to me. Now, this was a daughter that I knew would do absolutely anything in the world for me. But she looked me in the eyes and she said, "Mom, I can't do this anymore." She said, "I don't know when I come home if I'll find you drunk or sober. I don't know if I'll find you dead or alive." She said, "I just can't watch you destroy yourself anymore." My home, the home that was meant to be a house of dreams for my children, had turned into a house of horrors, and it was all my fault. At this time, I owned a small coffee shop, and I worked the coffee shop 6 days a week, mostly by myself. I would get up early in the morning to go open the shop, but before I would leave the house, I would have a drink. It wasn't because I wanted to have a drink. It was because I couldn't go to the shop and serve a customer coffee, shaking like a leaf. I would often drink during the day, and again, it was to maintain a certain level of alcohol in my system. And at night, I would go home and I would drink a lot. I would drink to numb the pain and the feelings that were inside of me and to hopefully just pass out. The day of the accident was a Wednesday, and the next day was my one day off a week. And in my alcoholic mind, That meant that I could drink that much more that night because I didn't have to get up in the morning. So I stopped at the store on the way home and I bought 2 pints of vodka. I always bought pint bottles because they were easier to hide. When I got home, I'm sure I drank down the first one. And then I decided to drive to a friend's house. And it was on the way home from that friend's house at 8:30 at night that the accident occurred. I woke up a couple days later in the hospital following 2 operations. My children were there. The 3 people I loved the most in the world. And in their eyes was just this devastating sadness. They had to tell me of the accident and of the death of Mr. Frost. My first reaction was, oh God, no, why wasn't it me? I'm the one who wants to die. Why did this innocent man have to die? But of course, I told no one. I can never explain the sorrow and the fear that I felt at this time. What followed was my arrest, court hearings, lawyers, and lots of drug and alcohol testing ordered by the courts. I would like to tell you that the accident was some kind of turning point, some kind of rock bottom for this alcoholic. But if I could have drank, I would have drank myself into oblivion. You see, the accident felt like one more anchor around my neck, an anchor that was pulling me down into some dark abyss, and I was taking the people I loved with me. On advice of my lawyer, I went to trial. There were some extenuating circumstances involving another car. But on the 3rd day, I was found guilty. I remember standing in front of that judge as he handed down the sentence. My sentencing guidelines were 43 to 84 months. And as he told me, he was giving me the maximum sentence, 84 months in prison, 7 years in prison. It was all I could do to not collapse right there in court. Every day of prison was hell. I didn't know if I could make it through the 7 years, and I didn't know if there'd ever be a life to come home to. Prison does little or nothing to rehabilitate or to effectively address substance abuse. The one recommendation they had for me for the entire 7 years was to attend AA. I didn't have a problem with that. I knew I could go to 12 meetings, get a little certificate of completion, and that's all I would need to ultimately appease the parole board. But when I got there, life finally began to change for me. I met some amazing women. They came into the prison every week, bringing the message of recovery. They seemed to see through my prison blues and the wall of defenses I had erected and see me, the broken woman I had become. They shared with me lots of messages of recovery, but there were 2 that resonated with me the most. The first was that I had the disease of alcoholism. Now, I had always understood alcoholism to be a disease, but when it came to how I thought about myself, I believed that I had just become some bad, weak, immoral person. But when I finally accepted that I had this disease, I was able to put aside a little of my shame and my guilt and begin forgiving myself. I also finally understood that it was not me I had to battle. It was the alcoholism. The second message was that if I wanted long-term sobriety, I had to learn to open up and share with others the depth of my pain. That was so hard to do, and it took so much courage, and it took a lot of time. But I began the process with these ladies, and then I continued it with my family and friends, the few who hadn't bolted out of my life. You see, it took some really special people to stay by my side, to continue to give me opportunities to heal. They listened to me without judgment or criticism. They gave me their strength when I had none. And they believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. It is because of that support system that I am a woman in recovery today. I believe that actions must have consequences, But I also believe that if we are going to successfully treat addiction, we have to do so with opportunities, sometimes endless opportunities, and with safe places in which to heal. Addiction is on the rise in this community and across the nation. It has become an epidemic. As a community, we have to learn how to put aside our own shame, our embarrassment, our anger, and our own family secrets, because secrets are a killer for you and for me. We have to learn where to get help, how to give help, and how to receive help, because addiction is a debilitating disease, not just for the substance abuser, but also for the loved ones. We have to stop thinking of addicts as undesirables and understand they are people in need of healing. As I said, it's only because of an amazing support group, a support group made up of family, friends, and the community, that I am here and well today. Because of this support group, I have regained my dignity, my self-respect, and most of all, the joy of living. That is an amazing gift. And it is because of that gift I can share with you my experience. And it is because of that gift I can share with others still suffering in their addictions and give them just a little bit of hope. In closing, I would like to ask something of each and every one of you. I ask that you look at me, and look at me closely. Understand and recognize that I am the face of addiction. And please know, my life was worth saving. Thank you.